been living with persistent pain, fatigue, dizziness, gut issues, headaches, chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID, or any other explained symptoms, you've probably asked yourself a haunting question. Why is this happening to me? You may have seen countless specialists, tried endless protocols, treatments, and yet symptoms persist. It can feel like your body has turned against you, betraying you for no reason. But what if the opposite is true? What if your body isn't betraying you? It's actually protecting you. What if your symptoms are not signs of failure, but signs of intelligence? The body's best attempt to keep you safe and true to yourself in the face of overwhelming experience. And this is the deeper truth about chronic mind-body conditions. They are not random. They are not meaningless. They are the language of the body that has adapted to survive too much and hold too much for too long. And to understand, to heal, therefore, we must now understand that this survival intelligence is actually what's creating our symptoms, and it's its most eloquent expression. Your body's number one job is not to make you feel comfortable. It's not even to make you feel happy or energetic. Its prime directive, wired into every cell, every nerve, every organ, is safety, is to keep alive. And above all else, your body is designed to do this. And to do it, it relies on the autonomic nervous system, an ancient network that constantly scans for danger of threat or safety and adjusts your physiology accordingly. These are your instincts. And this system operates below conscious awareness. It decides how fast your heart beats, how deeply you breathe, how your muscles tense, how your immune system behaves, and how your digestion functions, all in response to its reading of the environment. When it senses danger, it activates a survival state. If it senses safety, it allows you to rest, digest, and repair. Most of the time, it moves fluidly between these states, adjusting second by second. But if the environment has been chronically unsafe, physically, emotionally, or relationally, that fluidity can break down because we have been blocking ourselves to our core instinct, our emotions, and the system can become stuck in protection mode. And this is where chronic symptoms begin. The autonomic nervous system has three main ways of responding to threat. You'll probably have heard of some of this before. Fight or flight, which is sympathetic activation. The body releases adrenaline and cortisol, heart rate increases, muscle tenses, blood rushes to the limbs. You're ready to basically defend or run. And this state is useful in acute situations, in emergencies. But if it's activated too long and in a prolonged way, it becomes exhausting. And over time, it can manifest as anxiety, pain, tension, headaches, and inflammation. The second stage of autonomic nervous system function is freeze, dorsal vagal shutdown. If the system decides escape isn't possible, it may shift into shutdown. Everything slows, metabolism, heart rate, digestion, even your thinking. And this protects you from overwhelming pain, but it also leads to chronic fatigue, dissociation, brain fog, and numbness. The charge basically gets held in the body. And there's also fawn, appeasement, and overaccommodation. This often is overlooked. This response is about placating potential threat. We overachieve, we overfunction, we people please, we suppress our needs and hide anger to stay safe. It's the please don't kill me mode. And over time, this chronic self-suppression can manifest truly as these issues as well. The muscle pain, the gut issues, autoimmune reactions, and conditions like fibromyalgia. All of these states are deeply intelligent. They are not mistakes. They are deeply wired strategies designed to protect you from being destroyed, to keep you alive. Fundamental survival mechanisms. And when the nervous system has been conditioned to expect danger by trauma, chronic stress, or a lifetime of emotional suppression, which is the key regulator of the nervous system, we'll come to that, these protective states remain switched on long after the original threat has gone. So why does the system get stuck in the on switch? If survival responses are meant to be temporary, why do they become chronic and prolonged? The answer lies in the overload the system has faced. This overload can take many forms. Acute trauma, a single overwhelming event, an accident, a surgery, assault, anything that was too overwhelming to be processed at the original time. Chronic stress, ongoing exposure to threat, criticism, neglect, or instability that kept the nervous system on high alert, defensiveness, looking out to protect itself, often for years. And of course, emotional suppression is a consequence of all of this, repeatedly learning that certain feelings, anger, grief, and fear, and there'll be other videos talking extensively about emotions, if we felt they were unacceptable because they were not allowed to be expressed fully to completion within our environment when we were growing up. And this forced the body to contain them and hold them within the nervous system and in our actual tissues, in the body itself, instead of being allowed to naturally express them. And our attachment wounds. If our early relational experiences that taught the nervous system the world wasn't safe shape lifelong patterns of hypervigilance or shutdown. And this is about attachment and attunement to those on whom we depended, our caregivers, from being very, very, very small. So it's like a smoke alarm that once saved you from a fire, but now blares constantly, even when you're just making toast. The body doesn't know the danger has passed. It behaves as still the past. The past is still happening now because it hasn't had a chance to complete and switch off. So from this perspective, we can understand that symptoms are actually meaningful. They are not failures. Chronic symptoms start to make sense. They're not random or senseless. They're the body's strategies for managing overwhelm. Pain can serve as a protective brake, forcing you to slow down or withdraw when your system feels unsafe. Fatigue can prevent you from overextending into situations that once caused you harm. Dizziness can narrow your focus when the body feels flooded or overwhelmed, when there's too much information coming in because we haven't yet got rid of the backload. Gut problems can shift blood flow away from digestion into the survival mode. Anxiety can keep you hypervigilant to avoid danger. All of these because the message is still that we're switched on. And these patterns are not psychological fantasies. They are physiological realities. You can feel it. They involve nerves, hormones, muscles, fascia, and immune cells. But their origin is not structural damage. It is the body's attempt to protect you from something that once felt too overwhelming to complete, even if that something is no longer present. This can be something that happened when you were 1 year old and was quite minor, but to the 1-year-old you, without the caregivers or the protection to fully express how you felt, it got locked into the system. And over time has just been added to and added to and added to until the system can no longer hold the charge, which is now why it's expressing through the body. And this is why so many people develop symptoms after a difficult period has ended. Once the external stress is gone, the body feels safe enough now to update and process what it's been holding. Or, alternatively, if what it's been holding is so dense, it just can't contain the infinite storage. So the symptoms start to intensify, the energy starts to release, not because we're getting worse, but because the body is finally trying to complete an unfinished story, often from decades ago. One of the most powerful forces driving this process is emotion. Emotion is not an abstract idea. Emotions are embodied in survival impulses. Anger is the impulse to protect a boundary. Fear is the impulse to flee from threat. Grief is the impulse to release something that has gone and to move towards something to reconnect to let go of the old and to move to the new. And when these impulses are simply allowed to be felt and acted on and expressed, they complete their arc and dissolve over a very short period of time. But when they're suppressed, when anger isn't safe, so it's therefore not felt, when fear is shamed, when grief is interrupted and cut short and told to stiff upper lip it or just suck it up, they don't disappear. Emotions are real, energetic things. Their energy gets turned inwards, gets held into the body and shapes how the system operates, held in the body and the nervous system. And over time, this suppressed emotional charge, it's just energy in motion, it's meant to move through us very quickly, builds up pressure. The nervous system holding it must find a way to express it. Often chronic symptoms are that expression. They are the body's way of saying what could never be said in words or felt in safety. And this is why we feel dysregulated. This is a symptom of that repression. So this is why so many people find their symptoms shift or even resolve when deeply buried emotions finally surface bit by bit and felt, and eventually your symptoms will go when that charge is released from the body, out of the nervous system, through to complete what it couldn't once do. The body is not malfunctioning. It's speaking the language we were never taught to understand because we had to override it. The patterns that drive chronic symptoms are not just biological. This is mind-body, remember. They are psychological too, and many of them were learned long ago, before you had language. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where you learned that having to be good or useful was the only way to get your needs met to stay safe, your nervous system adapted by suppressing anger, need, or vulnerability. That suppression became embodied. Everything you couldn't feel went basically into the waiting room of the body and the nervous system for a point later when it could be expressed. And decades later, your body may be now speaking this truth you were never allowed to when you were a child. If your early environment was chaotic or unsafe, your system may have learnt that constant vigilance was necessary for survival, having to manage your safety by checking that everyone else around you was regulated in some way. Even if your adult life is now stable, this learnt vigilance may still be a pattern. These neurocircuits, these patterns are still firing, producing anxiety, tight muscles, gut distress, and sensory overload, always scanning for other people so that we can feel safe. We call these old programs, outdated survival responses that once protected you, but now hold you back. They are stored, to be clear, not just as beliefs, but as patterns inside muscle tone, hormonal output, and neural firing. Chronic symptoms are often the body's way of keeping those programs alive until it feels safe enough to update them. And to update them, they have to be allowed to be finally felt to the completion of the journey that was interrupted. Why understanding this changes everything, because when you see your symptoms not as random malfunctions, your only goal, was to eliminate them, and it's now, to fight them, to fear them, to fix them, and to see them as enemies. If we understand them as intelligent responses, as the body's attempt to now help us move into the present, to move back to feeling from and clear this backload, from having to protect us, to express and resolve what we once couldn't, everything starts to change. Fear begins to lose its grip, and instead of asking, how do I stop this? How do I stop the anxiety? You begin to ask, this is an old energy moving through. It's showing me something from my childhood, and you will have flashes of this as you start to do the work. And instead of blaming your body or trying to calm it down or get rid of it, you begin to listen to it, to finally feel what you couldn't when you were younger. And this shift from fear to curiosity, from war to dialogue, is one of the most powerful first steps in healing. Your body is not punishing you. It's not broken. It's communicating in the only language it has: sensation and feeling, tension, pain, fatigue. And once you learn to listen wordlessly to come back to your body, you can help it find new ways to safely do this, ways that don't require symptoms, because the symptom is simply the emotion you never felt, trying now to integrate and complete. Healing a mind-body condition is not about forcing your body to change. It is about creating the right conditions in which your nervous system no longer needs to hold this energy and protect you from keeping this stuff in the unconscious. This process unfolds naturally over time and involves several key steps. One, we talk about it all here, we have to make safety, and that's becoming back to the environment of the body, both internal and externally, building an environment where our nervous system, our brain, and our deeper self psychological self begins to feel secure enough to relax its old defences. And obviously we'll be talking about this more. Awareness, learning to notice and experience and recognise the old survival patterns driving your symptoms, and feeling, allowing suppressed emotions to surface and complete their natural cycles. All this happens within a structure, daily rhythms and consistency to signal safety to the body, doing the same thing over and over again with a routine schedule to signal trust and safety. And this trust, understanding that within this system, which will feel very chaotic, you'll have flare-ups, because all this is part of healing, not signs of failure. And you look at the other videos to understand why, because it's very, very misunderstood. To be clear, none of this is quick, none of this is linear, but it is profoundly possible. The body is always designed to heal. The body is not static, it is plastic, adaptable, and capable of immense change when we just give it the right conditions to do so. And that same intelligence that created your symptoms can uncreate them when the need for them dissolves, because you're now finally hearing in the body what we couldn't feel when we were younger. So I invite you to start understanding that your symptoms are not signs of brokenness, but signals of loyalty. Imagine that your body for years has been trying to keep you safe in the only way it knew how. Imagine behind the pain, the fatigue, the dizziness, the gut distress is an ancient, wise, wordless part of you saying, I am still protecting you. I remember. And this is the essence of mind-body conditions. It's the body's intelligent response to overload. In fact, a living testimony to what you have survived. But we now have to finally allow it to update through the body. And as you begin to listen to and allow that intelligence to just do its thing, to work with it, to become, to let it happen rather than make it happen, to work with it rather than against it, and give ourselves new ways to feel safe by being with that which was once considered too overwhelming. And remember, the symptom is the emotion we couldn't feel. Those same protective patterns will become pathways to profound healing, and symptoms will dissolve. So key takeaways here are: your body's first job is safety. Chronic symptoms often arise when the nervous system is stuck in protection mode. It won't let you destroy the body. So that's why it forces dysregulation to stop us living in the way where we're risking damaging ourselves, overusing a body in service of someone we're actually not. And once you understand this, once you understand what's at root, it changes everything. Stuck in protection mode, why? Until we update the backlog. To understand that this survival state, this fight, flight or freeze you're stuck in, is not something you need to re-regulate or fix. That these are intelligent systems that the body has put you in. The fight, flight, freeze and fawn are their adaptations, not malfunctions, waiting for us now to not do any more, but to update the past. And that the symptoms, therefore, are strategies, protective functions, even when they cause us great suffering. Emotions are embodied. This is the key takeaway you must remember. Suppressed emotional energies shape physiology and will manifest as physical symptoms. This is all about emotions. All of your disease, all illness, all chronic symptoms are caused by repressed emotions. Your dysregulation is caused by repressed emotions. Your symptoms are caused by repressed emotions. Your overthinking is caused by these repressed emotions that you don't even know are there. And they're held in the nervous system, they're held in the body, and they're held in the psyche. And now they want to be felt and heard and updated. And the only way they can get our attention now is through the body. So old programs can definitely change. The body will happily unlearn protective patterns once they're no longer needed, once we update. And we update in the ways we're talking about by allowing the body to do this naturally. Chronic symptoms are not your enemy. They are the echo of everything your system did to help you to survive. And it's the same intelligence that created them will also uncreate them as we start to allow them to move through, and will lead us home to regulation, to safety, and to ourselves. It's the great update, not through force, but through understanding, by providing safety, by allowing, and the deep patient work of just permitting the body to remember it is safe again. And we'll talk more about this, because people will be saying, oh, but I don't feel safe. That's fine. If there's a part of you that can be aware of that, that part signals safety. If you can stay with the pain, the symptoms, the emotional charge, the thoughts, that is read as safety. And that's why we become allowers.